So, firstly, what is Quantemol-EC? So, Quantemol-EC is a code for calculating electron molecule scattering cross sections. It's based off a new suite of R matrix codes and it interfaces with both MolPro and UKR Mol Plus in order to generate accurate cross sections. Some of you may be familiar with our previous software, Quantemol-N. Here I'm going to be taking you briefly through what Quantemol-EC can do that Quantemol-N cannot. So Quantemol-EC allows for the automatic generation of configurations, symmetry detection, and the handling of degenerate states. This makes it a lot easier to use than its predecessor. It also provides more accurate ionization cross-section calculations and has access to the most recent version of the R matrix codes. Now, the one which we're presenting today is the newest version of Quantemol-EC, Quantemol-EC 1.2. This has two key new features. The first one is it can handle non-resonant vibrational excitations for ions and neutral species. This is very, very useful for studying plasmas. And also it can utilize effective core potentials for ionization cross-sections. This is very useful for studying heavier atoms like tungsten. So if you're interested in Quantemol-EC 1.2, we're offering free trials for tryout for 2 weeks. So now I'm going to be quickly taking you through a case study of where I calculate the cross sections of H2O. So when you open Quantemol-EC, this is what you'll see. This will be your landing page. So to get started, you click File and then New. So there's two ways of doing the molecule. You can either import the atom, which I'll do in a moment, or you can draw the atom manually. So to draw it manually, you'll click Add Atom. You'll put in some sensible coordinates. Here's some I prepared earlier. 8 and 0.45. For your hydrogen. So I'm just quickly building oxygen here. And then drawing hydrogen 2. And 0.45. And there you have water. So that's obviously a fairly loose representation of water, pretty inaccurate. So in order to optimize that, you can click this button here and that utilizes the MolPro optimization. So this gives you the options of basis sets and gives you the option of the method of which you use. If you're not familiar with these things, then the defaults are absolutely fine. And it also gives you the option to select charge. So if I click OK there, then it will finish its optimization. And then you'll have the option of either saving it or not. Since I've already done this, I'm not going to save it. So I'm going to click No there. And that's one way of generating your atom. Another way of doing so is to download a geometry file from a webbook. So I'm going to click Clear All Data here to download a geometry file from a webbook like I have here. So water.xyz. You can download these from the NIST webbook or from ChemSpider or various places on the internet. And if you just open that, then you can just import that straight in, and then you can optimize that as well if you want to. So once you've got your geometry, the very important next step is to click center, which puts your molecule into the center of mass of the frame. This is important for later calculations. Next up, one will click next, and this will implement a very quick MolPro calculation to determine the point group of the molecule. So we're determining its symmetry here. This is convenient because it does it all for you and you don't need to worry about it. So I click OK, and if it's a small molecule, it will go very quickly. And as you can see there, that has determined the point group of water. And the point group's down here. And you can check that that's right. And these are your, you've got your molecule here and you can view it and see where its planes are and the like. So on this next page, you're going to be deciding which orbitals you use for your calculation. So you have the option between either using Hartree-Fock orbitals from an HF-SCF calculation or natural orbitals from an MC-SCF calculation. Hartree-Fock orbitals are a little bit cheaper to use, quicker to use. They don't use as much time when you're running the calculation, whereas MC-SCF orbitals are a little bit more accurate on most part and also are very useful for excited states. So if you're doing an excited state, electronic excited state calculation, then you'll want to use MC-SCF. So I'm going to be using Hartree-Fock orbitals for this calculation because I'd like it to go reasonably quickly for the purposes of demonstration. And again, you can select your basis set as before, and the default tends to be okay for that. So there's some advanced options if you do this. So if you're selecting the Hartree-Fock route, then you can use the effective core potentials, which I discussed earlier. And you can also artificially or give it a charge, multiplicity, symmetry, or change its memory requirements. If you use MCSCF, then you get all those same options, but you also get control over your active space. Now, for those who aren't familiar with active spaces, the default active space is the valence orbitals in MolPro, and that's absolutely fine. If you have a little bit more expertise in active spaces, then you might want to change this. We recommend you don't go any higher than 10 active electrons and 10 orbitals, just because of computational time. But yeah, if you're not familiar with active spaces, don't worry about it. The default one works absolutely fine in almost all circumstances. And if it doesn't, then you can feel free to email us at support@quantemol.com and we'll help as best we can. So for this one, I'm going to be clicking Hartree-Fock, as said earlier, and then I'm going to click Next. So for this bit, I'm going to be setting up my R matrix setup. So the first thing I do here is I'm going to decide on my R matrix sphere size. Now, the bigger this is, the more expensive the calculation is. However, you want to make sure that your sphere fully encapsulates your molecule. So if you've got an especially large molecule or especially diffuse orbitals, then you might want to make this a little bit bigger. I don't, so I'm going to be using the default, which is 10. So water is fully encapsulated within my orbital, within my sphere. Next up, one can choose the methods. You can choose, if you've chosen the Hartree-Fock route, you can either go with static exchange or use static exchange plus polarization. For more information on which one you might want to use, then feel free to email support@quantemol.com, or I also have a link at the end to a paper which you can take the link down and have a read through that if you're interested. But yeah, defaults are generally fine. If you'd chosen the MCSCF route on the previous one, then you'd be using the close coupling. That's the only option there is when it comes to the method. So we're going to be just using static exchange today in order to make things a little bit cheaper. You can change your scattering energy grid, or you can keep it with the defaults if you want to. This, if you make it a bit smaller, then the calculation will be a bit quicker, but you'll see less. And then finally, there's some advanced options in here. Don't worry about these if you don't have any interest in them, but you can change your total number of states, your vertical excitation energy cutoff, and a number of extra virtual orbitals, if you were to tick on that. So that's it for the setup. On this next page, we're just going to be selecting which cross-sections we'd like to study and clicking go. So I'm just going to quickly take you through the cross-sections which we can do. So as standard, when you're doing a Hartree-Fock calculation, you'll calculate your total elastic cross-section and calculate your eigenphases, which we're going to hear a little bit more about from Harren in the next talk. If you had selected the MCSCF route and used close coupling, then you'd have the option. It would also, as standard, do the excited state cross-sections, but we're not doing that in this case. And then you've got some extra optional ones. So you can calculate the ionization cross-section with the binary encounter Bethe. To do so, you just tick that. You can also click on the options, and you can either use Koopman's ionization energy as your from Koopman's theorem in order to have your ionization energy, or if you have a more accurate ionization energy experimentally, then you can tick the box and manually enter that. But if you're not familiar with that, then the default is absolutely fine. In almost all cases, sticking with the defaults is going to get you a good result. We also have the differential momentum transfer and rotational cross sections. If you select that, then you have the ability to change your energy grid, because these can be quite big and quite use quite a lot of memory and be quite expensive. So you might want to make your grid a little bit smaller. You also have the ability to either use your calculated dipole moments, or if you have a more accurate experimental ones, you can input those manually. But don't worry if you don't. The next thing is the vibrational excitation cross sections. This is going to be the one we're calculating today. This is a new feature for Quantemol-EC. Again, you have the ability to change your energy grid, because again, it's quite a big, expensive calculation. So you might want to, well, quite a big, when I say expensive, I mean computationally expensive. So uses a lot of time. Then, yep, so you might want to make that a little bit smaller. So I'm going to keep that ticked because we're going to be doing that. And then finally, for these ones, you can also have an accurate estimate of the dissociation attachment cross-section. Now, for this, you must provide a dissociation energy. This is available online from many web resources. So if you want to do an estimate for this, you must provide dissociation energy. You can also optionally just provide vibrational frequency and also suggest what fragments you think might be formed and their electron affinity, if you would like to make your calculation more accurate. But again, the defaults are all fine for that. The only thing which isn't default is your dissociation energy, which you must include. If I had clicked on the MCSCF route, then I'd also be able to calculate higher energy and elastic electronic cross sections. And the options for that are similar to the options for the ionization cross sections, and that you can decide whether you want to use Koopman's theory to get your ionization energy. Whether you want to use Koopman's theory to get your ionization energy, or if you have an experimentally led one. So that's all sorted. So I'm just going to quickly click run on that. So this will take a couple of minutes. So in this time, I just wanted to briefly stress that, as I said previously, all of these calculations, you have the ability, should you want to add extra things. You have the ability, if you have the knowledge to do so, of changing your active space, of changing advanced options. So it's quite a easy to use software if you have those sorts of skills. However, that is not completely necessary. If you want to stick to your defaults, if you want to stick to the standard route, then you will very often be able to get a very, very good calculation out of that. If you can't get a good calculation out of that for whatever reason, then my colleague Harren, who you're going to be hearing for in a minute, is always happy to receive your emails and to work through any issues you might have with it, providing any support which you might need. This is also probably a good time to mention that as part of this workshop, we are offering a 10% discount using the promo code QWorkshop21 before September 30th, 2021. So if you want to order any of the pieces of software which you're going to see today, then if you order them before September 30th, 2021, and you include in your email QWorkshop21, then you'll get a 10% discount off of any product which you might purchase. Another thing which I mentioned earlier is this paper here. I can send this out as an automated email so that everyone who came to this conference receives this citation, but this is a citation for some interesting stuff which you might find useful. So I'll cut back to this. It's almost done. So geometry 4 of 6. So we'll just have to wait a moment. While we have a second. Okay, no, don't worry about that. We'll talk about that at the end. That's easier. Yeah, so you've got your calculation log here, so you can see what it's up to. If you don't understand these things, then don't worry about it, but it's useful to be able to monitor it, especially if you're working with one of us and you're doing some troubleshooting, then it's useful to be able to read through some of these things and send us where things might have fallen over. But on the most part, it's very, very robust. One of the big strengths of this software is that it's both very robust and also very accurate. Okay, so after you've waited a little while for that, then you'll have this screen here pop up, and this is your results section. So for your results, I'm going to quickly take you through what you have here. So for my total elastic cross section, I can click view, and this will show me my total elastic cross section. I can plot that either linearly or logarithmically in both the X and the Y axes. If I'm happy, when I'm happy with that, then I can click save, and that will save that as a PNG file. So just as an image, I'll show you how to save the raw data in just a moment. You can also view the rate. And in this case, you can see here is the rate. And this also has Arrhenius fitting parameters for it, and they're calculated here. And again, you can have that in linear and logarithmic. And again, you can save that as a PNG file should you see the need. You have your eigenphases, which you can view here. Again, can be done linearly and logarithmically and saved as a PNG. Oh, excuse me. You also can have your ionization cross sections as calculated by the binary encounter method. So you can view that again linearly and logarithmically. And again, you can save that as a PNG. And you again can get rates from that, and it has Arrhenius fitting parameters, all that sort of thing. That's going to be the case for pretty much any cross section which you calculate. And finally, the new feature is our vibrational excitation cross sections. So you can view that, and you can see you've got some vibrational excitation cross sections for different states. Again, can be plotted linearly and logarithmically. And you can also view your rate for that as well. So when you've looked at all of that's savable as PNGs, as I said before, you can click view on your data sheet. So your data sheet has some key information, like the molecule of which you put together, its electronic configuration, the molecular orbitals you've calculated, dipoles, and that sort of thing. it also has some information on resonance there. But at this point, you can also see that the cross sections which we've calculated, you can view raw data for them. So you can view the raw data for your cross section here. And if you click save there, you can save that as a CSV. And you can also view the raw data for your rate data, which you can save there. And this allows you to plot it yourself if you want to, or you can download the PNGs if you wanted to. You have this for anything which you've calculated. So when you've got all of that, then the only thing which is left here is you've got your reference, which is at the bottom, which you'll cite when you use this in a paper. We also have a link at the top to our database, Quantemol-DB, which Sebastian's going to be telling you a little bit about in just about half an hour. This is very useful because you can compare this to other data which has already been taken and corroborate your science, which is always a handy thing to do. So that's your data sheet for you. Another thing one can do when you're done with all this is they can click Export Directory, and then you can just pick a place to save it. So we're going to go for our new releases workshop results and click Open, and that will save our directory. Now what you can do is if you're starting afresh, you can just do File, Open, Results, and then I'll go back to where I was, and there it is. Click on that, click Open, and then you can have that exact same pop-up there. So you don't need to run the calculation again if you want to view previous results. So I'll just take you through to the last slides on this. There's a citation if you wanted to have a look, but we can also send that out. Again, a reminder, 10%. You can get a 10% discount by using promo code QWorkshop21 before the September the 30th, 2021. And if you have any further questions whatsoever or need any support whatsoever, then feel free to email us at support@quantemol.com.